there! I'm the Macho Man, Goby Savage, and I'm here to tell you about the symbiosis between the gobies and the alpha shrimp. How do you spell symbiosis? Not like you pronounce it, because it's the English language. So let's look up some gobies together with their shrimp. Yeah! Now first, nothing but love and respect for the memory of the late Randy Savage. Now here we have one of these gobies, which is actually in a symbiosis, and you can look up how you spell that, and it's in a symbiosis with one of these alpha shrimp. So this goby is hovering above this burrow. Who builds the burrow? It's the shrimp. But what's the role of the goby? And yeah, here you can see the shrimp dig out sand. What's the role of the goby? The goby has very keen eyes and is looking out for predators which are approaching the burrow. And then there is a communication system which is based on tactile information. So essentially the goby wiggles its fins or its body, and then the shrimp knows what's going on, and if there is a threat, and then they go into the burrow. And here you can see that kind of wiggle. So this goes from essentially a tail flick, which you can call an orange alarm. This means there's some kind of danger nearby, there's a threat which we want to take seriously, to a full-on escape of the fish into the burrow, which you can take as a red alert. And that means both goby and shrimp are in danger and should stay underground. Now, very interesting, these are fighting sometimes. So here is a small goby, and I think this is Amblü eleotris steinitzi, and they are having a dispute who owns that burrow with the shrimp. And so the bigger goby drove off the smaller one, and the smaller one then went to a neighbor's burrow and still got his ass kicked. So you can see that again in slow motion. So the goby gets hit and then moves away from the burrow. So these burrows have high value. Survival of these gobies without a burrow on the shrimp is very low. Fascinating stuff. If you swim calmly and if you approach this animal calmly, you can observe this in many dive sites. This is actually nothing rare. It's just sometimes not seen by divers because any kind of hectic swimming, flailing around, poor buoyancy will spook these animals, and they will go underground and you won't be able to see them anymore. Now, Lubicogobius exiguus, very interesting fish. So it's on this kind of window insulation here. So this fish is what's called a Kulturfolger. So very often I see them on the remnants of human civilization, any kind of structure they really like. Originally, I believe they were living in discarded, dead invertebrate housings, but now humans provide their homes. This fish here, also a goby of course, lives on this elephant ear sponge. So this orange thing, which is swaying back and forth in the ocean, it's also covered in small brittle stars, by the way. This orange thing is a sponge, so it's a filter feeder, and these fish only live on these sponges, and sometimes you have a couple of them on one sponge, and what you get is that they would never leave their homes, and they are very camouflaged. You can see that the goby matches the color of the sponge. This is something I think I've captured well with my macro setup, but if you're not aware of what's going on here, you will not find this. So there is such a high degree of camouflage, and it's co-evolution between this invertebrate host and between the goby, which is so well adjusted to life on this sponge. Now the other gobies, which are doing without an invertebrate host and without a symbiosis, they are just living in the sand, and they're just really, really well camouflaged. And a lot of them are very difficult to ID, to me at least. So their skin patterns are usually sand colored, and there are very subtle differences between the blotches and the number of blotches and where exactly on the bodies they are. And sometimes you really have to have the fish under a microscope, I believe, to precisely see what this is. And there are other fishes in this sandy habitat which I want to show you as well, and this is a razor wrasse. And you can see it's feeding in the sand here, and then it decides to hide under the sand. So let's look at the same behavior, the same fish escape behavior again. So it's picking up something seemingly edible, or it's moving the sand to the side, and then what did it see that scared it? Well, that was me. And then there is this very rapid movement under the sand. So this is 8 times slow motion here. And you can see even when slowing down the footage, the fish is under the sand in an instant. So please check out more interesting behavior of this juvenile razor wrasse, which is dancing as if it was a piece of seaweed that's detached on the sand. What a beautiful dance, check that out. And in the end, there's still some footage of a very translucent shrimp, also in the sand, really well camouflaged, together with some cool music, and see you next week.